What's up, everyone? Today is the 27th of July, 2023. In today's video, we're going to discuss a colossal synchronicity that was highlighted in yesterday's news from July 26th. On this channel, we use the universal language of numerology to understand how significant events on the world stage are not only connected with one another, but also connected to similar events in history. Yesterday, most of the country woke up to two major news stories: the collapse of a crane in New York City, and that Hunter Biden would be pleading guilty to federal tax evasion charges. Much like the crane, however, Biden's plea deal would end up collapsing. For those of you who follow my work, a big collapse in New York shouldn't be that surprising. See my videos on the Yankees' perfect game from last month, the Long Island serial killer, and also the death of New York City meteorologist Elise Finch, to see how 9/11 has been coded into many major recent news stories. A link between the collapse of a crane and the fall of a U.S. president's son, who famously works in a country called Ukraine, has actually happened before. Back in 1999, the Big Blue crane in Milwaukee, Wisconsin collapsed during the construction of the city's new baseball stadium, which is now called American Family Field. Just 2 days after this collapse in 1999, the son of former President John F. Kennedy, JFK Jr., died in a plane crash off the coast of Massachusetts. Now, the baseball team that plays in Milwaukee is the Brewers. However, up through the 1960s, Milwaukee used to be the home of the Braves. One night before yesterday's crane collapse, the Atlanta Braves turned a rare triple play against the Boston Red Sox, which is, of course, the team that plays in Massachusetts. What makes all of this particularly intriguing is that Hank Aaron, who played for both the Braves and the Brewers in his career, died just 2 days after President Joe Biden took office in January of 2021. Hank Aaron died in Atlanta, Georgia. On Inauguration Day, 2 days earlier, in the city of Atlanta, Texas, former Packers general manager Ted Thompson died. And this is relevant because the Packers play in Wisconsin, just like the Milwaukee Brewers. Ted Thompson was born on January 17th, exactly 1 year before Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the cousin of JFK Jr. And naturally, RFK Jr. has been all over the news lately as he launches his controversial presidential campaign for next year. Also, ask yourself, what are the odds of this? The crane that collapsed yesterday in New York City was adorned with the name Llama. The former owner of the company, New York Crane, was James Llama. And James Llama died on July 14th of 2019. Which was the 20th anniversary of the Big Blue crane collapse in Milwaukee. And we're going to talk a lot about matching birthdays, or birthdays that are one-off from one another. All of these characters in this story that I'll be talking about have very similar birthdays. So for this decode, we'll start by exploring the numerical relationship between Hunter Biden and New York City. Then we'll review the remarkable numerology that links all of this to the Big Blue crane collapse. And finally, we'll take a look at the Milwaukee Brewers' win last night on the same date of the collapse over the Cincinnati Reds and see how the game's hero, Tyrone Taylor, who shares the same initials as Ted Thompson, is also synced up with Big Blue. So let's get started. Now, in my video on the Long Island serial killer, I made a strong point to mention that New York State would be celebrating its 235th anniversary of admission to the United States on the same date as the Jewish holiday of Tisha B'Av. Now, Tisha B'Av commemorates the destruction of the two temples, Solomon's Temple and the Second Temple. And after 9/11, the destruction of the two temples, the United States invaded Iraq, which is the current-day Babylon, just like how Solomon's Temple was destroyed by the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So a strong link between Tisha B'Av, and on this date, Tisha B'Av of 2023, July 26th, and here we got these twin collapses with the crane collapse in New York City and then the plea deal collapse for Hunter Biden. So twin collapses, all connected to New York City. Again, see my recent videos and you'll see what this is all about. So yesterday was the 235th anniversary of New York State. In the standard alphabetic order, where A is assigned 1, B is 2, all the way through Z is 26, the phrase New York crane collapse equals 235. Using square numbers, tax evasion equals 2350. And of course, this was the same day that Hunter Biden tried pleading guilty to his tax evasion charges. Hunter Biden was born on February 4th of 1970. This means that on the date of the collapse, he was exactly 2,790 weeks old, which contained the digits 279. Of course, the zeros here will be customarily dropped. In the alphabetic order, New York City, New York, sums to 279. You'll also notice how New York, New York equals 2970 in Latin. And these numbers are connected because 2,079 days also equates to 297 weeks. Back in 2015, Hunter Biden's brother, Beau Biden, the namesake of their father, Joe Biden, died after, I think he had some kind of brain aneurysm or cancer. Yesterday's collapse was 2,979 days after the death of Beau Biden. So a lot of the same digits here that we see in these ages. When we talk about 9/11, we often talk about Mercury. In ancient mythology, Mercury was the god of messages, communication, travelers, and merchants. And think about how this all relates to the destruction of the World Trade Center, which was a financial centerpiece of the nation. On the top of the towers were two telecommunication towers, responsible for sending messages, and they were destroyed when travelers in an airplane struck the buildings, leading to their collapse. So Mercury is very important to 9/11. And yesterday, Hunter Biden turned exactly 222 mercurial years old. This syncs up with the ordinal gematria of New York, New York, 222 in the alphabetic order. This means yesterday was the first day of Hunter Biden's 223rd mercurial year. Those who have been following my work understand that 322 is a very significant number this year. At Yale University, there's a secret society that uses the number 322. This is the Skull and Bones Society. Skull and Crossbones equals 223. And here in the year 2023, Yale University turns 322 years old. So we've been seeing these numbers a ton over this year. Hunter Biden's namesake was his mother, Nelia Hunter. And Nelia Hunter was killed in a car crash that Hunter Biden survived when he was only 2 years old. Notice how Nelia Hunter died a span of 223 days before her birthday. Let's also appreciate that tax evasion, which he was accused of, matches Skull and Bones with the ampersand in all four base methods. Now, when we're looking at the number 223, there's a very significant connection with Skull and Bones that needs to be understood. The 223rd prime number is 1409. This brings us to the ordinal value of Skull and Bones, which equals 149 in the standard alphabetic order. On the date his mother died, Hunter Biden was 1,049 days old and was also 149 weeks old. And now we get this story connected to a crane. Crane has matching 149 gematria with Skull and Bones. But let's talk about why yesterday, July 26th, was a very significant date for Skull and Bones. Yale University, where the secret society is headquartered, will celebrate its 322nd anniversary on October 9th this year. Well, July 26th, which was the date of the collapses, fell a span of 76 days before Yale's anniversary. And you'll notice that the primary date numerology for July 26th, 7 plus 26 plus 20 plus 23, was also 76. Of course, we also have a 76 in the date numbers, 726. Now, why is all of this so important? Well, consider how George W. Bush was a graduate of Yale University, and he was a member of the Skull and Bones Society. Notice how he was born on July 6th, or 7-6. George W. Bush and his father, George H.W. Bush, are commonly accused of being part of a New World Order conspiracy, which was written in stone, literally, at the Georgia Guidestones. George Bush and his father, George, Georgia. Well, the Georgia Guidestones were destroyed on July 6th, or 7-6. On that date, George Bush turned exactly 76 years old. So now we get this big 76 alignment with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was even born on a date with numerology of 76. And using the reverse alphabetic order, where Z is assigned 1, Y is 2, all the way through A is 26, the name Hunter equals 76. And it just so happens that Hunter Biden was born 76 days after his father Joe's birthday. So let's talk about this again. Now, we have the collapse in a deal involving a president's son on the same day as a crane collapse. And back in 1999, the big blue crane collapsed just 2 days before the death of John F. Kennedy Jr. Now, I remember these events more than some people because Milwaukee is my home. So this was something that really stuck out in my memory. So once again, JFK Jr. died off the coast of Massachusetts, which is home of the Red Sox. And the night before the crane collapse, the Red Sox fell victim to the first 8-3-5 triple play in nearly 140 years to the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves used to call Milwaukee their home, and this big blue crane collapse was at the home of the Milwaukee Brewers. So check out the numerical connection here that really blew me away. In Latin Gematria, a cipher which I consider to be the most significant, Milwaukee, Wisconsin sums to 2411. The crane collapse and Hunter Biden's plea deal collapse fell a span of 24 years and 11 days after the death of JFK Jr. Also, the Braves' triple play against the Red Sox was 24 years and 11 days after the collapse of the Big Blue Crane. Now, 24 years and 11 days is also a span of 8,778 days. And in that same cipher, Braves equals 878. I found it interesting that Milwaukee, Wisconsin also has a lot of Gematria overlap with Hunter Biden's full name and New York City, New York. So let's bring this together. Hunter's father, Joe Biden, assumed office on January 20th, 2021. Again, this was the same exact day that former Wisconsin sports general manager Ted Thompson died. Measuring from the date that Biden became the president to the date of the collapse in New York was exactly 131 weeks. Recall earlier I mentioned how this crane in New York had the name Llama written on it after founder James Llama. The name Llama sums to 131 in Latin Gematria. And again, Llama died on the 20th anniversary of the Big Blue crane collapse. Well, in the reverse alphabetic order, Big Blue equals 131. And it collapsed in West Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which equals 131. When the Braves turned their triple play the other night, it was 1,031 days after the last triple play the Brewers turned. Notice how 3 outs equals 131. To make this even more interesting, Joe Biden was born on November 20th, which is the same date of birth as Robert F. Kennedy. Of course, the father of RFK Jr., who is now running for president. Notice how Joseph Robinette Biden sums to 107, just like John Fitzgerald Kennedy. In that same cipher, RFK equals 17. And Joe Biden was born on RFK's 17th birthday. So let's talk about Hank Aaron once again, who died 2 days after Ted Thompson, January 22nd of 2021. Hank Aaron called 44 his lucky number. This was the number on his jersey, and it's the number that both Wisconsin and Georgia have retired. Wisconsin and Georgia, the only 2 states with 44 Gematria. The Braves triple play was the first triple play in Major League Baseball in exactly 44 weeks. And when you do a little exploration, you find that the crane collapse in Milwaukee was heavily connected to the numerology of Hank Aaron, who finished his career with the Brewers and even hit his final home run in Milwaukee. When you write out the number 44, it sums to 99 and 1512. Notice how Big Blue Crane equals 99. And the Big Blue Crane collapse was in the year 99. It even happened at 5:12 p.m., a lot like 44 with standard Gematria. The company that was blamed for the mistake was Mitsubishi, who paid $99 million to victims in the collapse. Hank Aaron would die a span of 193 days after the anniversary of that collapse, and that's the 44th prime number. Yesterday, Hunter Biden was 193 days before his birthday. But that's not even the strongest alignment. In reduction, or Pythagorean Gematria, where every letter is reduced to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation, notice how crane collapse has matching 52 Gematria with both Hank Aaron and Henry Aaron. The 52nd prime number is 239, and when this crane collapsed in Milwaukee, Hank Aaron was exactly 23,900 days old. He was also a span of 160 days before or after his birthday, and the name Hank Aaron equals 160. When the crane collapsed in New York City, it was a span of 195 days before Hank Aaron's next birthday. 195 is the ordinal value of his full name, Henry Louis Aaron. So as I pointed out earlier, RFK Jr. has been dominating the headlines lately as his controversial run for president is underway. Using the standard alphabetic order, his full name, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., sums to 254. And this is a very significant number. JFK Jr. was born 2,504 days after RFK Jr. When his father was assassinated, RFK Jr. was 5,254 days old. Think about how the crane collapse connects to 9/11. Flaming debris falling into the streets. 9/11 is the 254th day of the year. Yesterday's crane collapse fell exactly 1,254 weeks after the Big Blue collapse in Milwaukee. When RFK was assassinated, Hank Aaron was even 12,540 days old, so another 254 to find there. But what if we just take his common name? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This sums to 190 in the alphabetic order. That stands out because the collapse in New York was 190 days after Robert F. Kennedy's RFK Jr.'s birthday. Notice how RFK also equals 19. And the collapse for Big Blue was at the stadium home of the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee Brewers also 190. There's more strong connections with these two cousins. JFK Jr. was born 314 days after RFK Jr.'s birthday. And when you write out RFK's full name, Robert Francis Kennedy, it sums to 314 in reverse. When John F. Kennedy Jr. died, it was exactly 31 years and 40 days after RFK was assassinated. Now, 314 is, of course, the first three digits of pi. The smallest equation you can use to get pi on a calculator is 22 divided by 7. And this works in Gematria also. When you write out 22 divided by 7, it's 314. JFK Jr. died in a plane crash off of Martha's Vineyard, which equals 227. And it happened just 2 days after the crane collapse, which equals 227. And the crane that collapsed was really the only blue crane I've ever seen. And notice how blue equals 227 as well. So I want to talk about a strong 777 connection with this collapse and the Atlanta Braves triple play. So when the Braves pulled their triple play off against the Red Sox in Boston, the date was what we call a Super 7 date. So if you add the digits in the dates together like this, you find that this date reduces to 777. So the number 7 was very significant for July 25th. And this happened in Boston. And notice how both Boston and Red Sox sum to 77 in reverse gematria. The Braves triple play was pulled off 8,777 days after the Big Blue collapse. The collapse in New York City was 8,777 days after the death of JFK Jr. The Big Blue collapse was blamed on Mitsubishi, and Mitsubishi equals 777. And for that Braves triple play, the final out was made when number 27 tagged number 7. Even this umpire here was wearing number 49, which is 7 squared. So that next night, the same night as the collapse in New York City, the Milwaukee Brewers played a home game against the Cincinnati Reds. So this stadium was the site of the Big Blue collapse. And the hero was Tyrone Taylor, whose 2-run home run broke a scoreless tie late in the 7th inning. And think about this. It happened in the 7th inning, right? We're talking about only 7 connections. Well, on the date of his heroics, Tyrone Taylor was 10,777 days old. On the date of the Big Blue Crane collapse in 1999, Tyrone Taylor was 1,999 days old. Tyrone Taylor was born on January 22nd. That's the same date that Hank Aaron died. January 22nd. When Hank Aaron died, Tyrone Taylor was a span of exactly 1,409 weeks old. Remember this number from earlier, 1409. This was the age of Hunter Biden when his mom was killed in that car accident. Now, Hunter Biden works in Ukraine. The word crane matches skull and bones through 149. Well, when Tyrone Taylor came up to bat to hit his home run, he was hitting a measly 149 batting average on the season. 149, by the way, is also the gematria of Ted Thompson. And think about this. Tyrone Taylor, Ted Thompson, same initials. Ted Thompson also equals 149. Tyrone Taylor even wears number 15. This gematria is shared by Henry Aaron, Robert Francis Kennedy, RFK, and even Crane Collapse, all with gematria that represent the number 15. Tyrone Taylor was born on a date with primary numerology of 136. The name Tyrone Taylor equals 136. So does both Atlanta Braves and Triple Play. And again, this was just one night after the Braves turned their Triple Play. But one more look at his initials, TT, just like Ted Thompson. The letters TT represent 2020 or 22, as T is the 20th letter, 20 and 2. The last name Aaron equals 202 and 22. And consider how former Packers player Aaron Rodgers is now playing football in New York City for the Jets. The Jets, that's a big 9/11 riddle, of course. Tyrone Taylor hit his home run off of Edward Bennett Lively, whose name sums to 220. The Braves were playing in Boston that night. Boston equals 22, and Skull and Bones equals 202. The 202nd prime number is 1231. This is the gematria of Wisconsin. And the winning pitcher of this game was Elvis Paguero, and the losing pitcher was Ben Lively. And notice how the names Elvis Paguero and Ben Lively both equal 1231, just like Wisconsin. So it's truly incredible in my eyes how the world of sports never fails to sync up with the mainstream news and the numerology we see. Now, before I end this video, I want to look at one more piece of this riddle. And we're going to look back at this screenshot of all these birthdays. So let's just recap, right? We had Ted Thompson, born exactly 1 year before RFK Jr. RFK's father was born on the same date, November 20th, as Joe Biden. Joe Biden's son, Beau Biden, was born just one day before Hunter Biden. And then one day later, February 5th, that's the birthday of Hank Aaron. The owner of New York Crane, James Lama, was born on November 24th. That's just one day before the birthday of JFK Jr., November 25th. Now today, July 27th, which is one day after the crane collapse, is the birthday of another Hunter, Hunter Hearst Helmsley of the WWE. And his birthday falls just one day before the birthday of Nelia Hunter Biden, the mother of Hunter Biden. I mean, what are the odds of all this? I guarantee you they're very, very, very astronomically slim. So why is Triple H significant? Well, again, this guy's name is Hunter, right? Hunter Hearst Helmsley used to be his ring name. That's where he gets the Triple H moniker from. Also, Triple H is known as the Skull King, which connects us to Skull and Bones. And Skull King equals an upside down 9/11. Again, yesterday and today is Tisha B'Av. Yesterday, Triple H was a span of 19,723 days old. And notice how the name Hunter Biden equals 723. Now, Triple H is an executive who's currently the head of WWE Creative. And New York City is very special to WWE. For many decades, WWE ran all of their biggest shows out of Madison Square Garden. You'll see that Madison Square Garden, the #1 arena of WWE in New York City. In Latin Gematria, Triple H equals 282. And this crane collapse was on New York State's anniversary. New York State turned exactly 2,820 months old. July 26th is also the 207th day of the year. Triple H's full name, Paul Michael Levesque, has Gematria of 207. So does New York City, New York, and New York City. In reduction, this all syncs up with Robert Hunter Biden. His common name, Paul Levesque, also matches New York City, New York, and Hunter Biden. This overlap is incredible. There's a couple more syncs in yesterday's news. Hunter Biden equals 172, just like crane collapse. Yesterday was 172 days after Hunter Biden's birthday. It's also 173 days after his birthday. And 173 connects to the Yale Skull and Bones riddle. Yale University equals 173. Well, 173 is the 40th prime number. And the crane collapse occurred in Manhattan, which is on the 40th parallel. And yesterday even had date numerology of 40. So I think I'll cut the decode there. If you want to see more, there's links down in the description below to all of the posts I made on this story. Undoubtedly, the synchronicity is very strong. It's just like, who's doing this? You know? Completely different situations, decades apart, but very intricately and strongly linked together. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this video. Please check the links in the description if you'd like to support this work to keep videos like this coming as we continue to explore our holographic matrix. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.